I'm Susanna Lawson, founder ambassador of OneFile. It's been almost 2.5 years since we sold to Harris, which has been a really interesting time, obviously letting go of my baby, OneFile. Next year is OneFile's 20th birthday, 20th anniversary. So it's just been fascinating. It's been a pleasure and an honour to be asked to be an ambassador. The changes that Harris have brought in since acquiring OneFile, I've been completely in agreement with. They're very values driven, which is one of the reasons that we chose Harris to acquire OneFile, so that the way that they've dealt with the team and with the customers and the ongoing support and the innovation is, it's been a pure pleasure to see, and to see OneFile go from strength to strength in that time. There's a lot of challenges at the moment in the apprenticeship sector, including funding with the cost of living increases. Training providers, employees, employers as well are finding that a real struggle. Sort of completion rates are a struggle. They're not as high as the government would like them to be, and as high as providers and the apprentices would like it to be. So, but with that comes opportunity. So where can we make those improvements, those incremental improvements that can improve those completion rates, support government to improve the funding of the apprenticeships, and hopefully we can all get there as a team. There are obviously so many different innovations coming through now with technology. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, generative AI, and the whole world is changing right now with employment, with personal lives, using that kind of technology. And I think people need to embrace that it's coming, and they need to have a strategy on how to implement it in their organisations, whether that's a training provider, a college or an employer. By using artificial intelligence, we can really look at improving productivity, and it's not about taking people's jobs, it's about making people's jobs more interesting and taking some of the mundane tasks away from them so they can be more creative and think differently and come up with more ideas. I think that the training providers and the colleges really do need to have policies in place about how the students and the apprentices are using that for their work, their student work, but also how their own employees are using it as coaches, as quality assurers. There's a huge data protection risk with generative AI. By putting the data in, you can be exposing that data externally to people that you might not want to have access to it, and the next time they question it, they might be able to access your data. So there needs to be clear policies and strategies for that, but also exploring the opportunities because they're incredibly exciting. The personalised journey for each individual learner is incredibly important because no two people are the same. So the way we want to learn, the way we want to study is incredibly different, and it is difficult for training providers and colleges to be able to bespoke that for individual learners. What is important is if we can aggregate some of the data, so we can anonymise it and we can say that these kind of learners, so it might be when I did my master's dissertation, I looked at potential breaks in learnings with level 7 apprenticeships, and it saw that women who already had a level 7 qualification, a master's level qualification with children, were more likely to consider having a dropout of their studies than other groups of learners. So therefore, if you're going to recruit people with those variables, then you'll be able to see, right, these ones might be more at risk of dropping out than another group. But that's not to say that the students in the other groups are also not at risk, and that's where the personalisation comes in. And by using data, you'll be able to see, for example, in technology in an e-portfolio, how often is somebody logging in at the beginning when they're really engaged, and is that slowing down? Is the time in between them logging in increasing, or the time that they're actually logged in for is decreasing? And by using data like that, you'd be able to identify, is there a risk of that learner dropping out, and therefore you could do an intervention at a certain point, which would then increase their chances of completion. If I could dream big for the next 2 years, there's potentially going to be a huge change in government coming up in 2024. I would want either the current government or the new incoming government to really have a focus on apprenticeships. People use skills and apprenticeships as a bit of a buzzword, a bit of a get by the votes, but really they need to have that full understanding, and we need that stability of the skills minister in post for long enough to do real big changes, rather than changing every 6 months, once a year, 2 years. We need somebody in post for long enough with the passion already in that sector and the understanding to hit the ground running. I had a really interesting fireside chat panel today with Ricky Lees from British Airways, Sharon Blyfield from Coca-Cola EP and Lucy Hunt from NHS England. We were discussing what, as employers, they are looking for when they outsource their provision to a training provider or in a college. And it was really fascinating, listening to the challenges that they have finding reputable, good quality apprenticeship providers, and also when doesn't it work? When does it go wrong? And what do they put in place to make sure that doesn't happen? Couple of the key takeaways for me was don't be afraid to ask for the full funding. They don't want the race to the bottom. They would rather pay full funding band in order to get that quality provision, and it often worries them when they see it coming in too low, because how is that sustainable for that training provider? And the other interesting thing was the sales techniques. All of them said they are bombarded with emails, messages on LinkedIn, sales, 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 and they don't listen and ask the questions about what they want.